Hello, everybody out there, and we're back on the Unsaid show on 90.4 FM Oman. I'm so happy. I'm always excited to come to our show, honestly. And it's not just us saying that, because every time it's a totally different topic, and sometimes not planned. So it's awesome, and that's how life is. That's how mental health goes. That's how issues in life, and that's how it is. So let's see who's with us today. But before that, I just want to tell you that we're here every Monday from 1 to 2 FM on 90.4. The Unsaid show talks about mental health issues, society issues, things that are going on around us and in our life, and how it's affecting us. We always wait for your calls, of course, and your DMs on our Instagram, Not Alone Oman. We will give you the phone number a bit later. But first of all, who's with me in the studio today? Let's start from here.
Good afternoon. It's Hyesha. Hyesha Barrett's with you today.
Lovely. And
hi, I'm Tamsyn Pereira.
Cool. We have, of course, Sahar and Sarah today. Sadly, couldn't come, and we're so happy to have Hyesha with us. Actually,
thank you so much.
It's a lovely energy. So, thank you for coming to the Unsaid show.
Thank you for having me.
And you're part of it anyway.
Oh yes, thank you very much for including me. I appreciate it.
So today we're going to talk about what's going on around the world, and also we're going to talk about why don't people talk about mental health. The biggest issue of all that we always talk about. But before that, let's go to a short break, and then we'll be back with you. Keep that dial on.
This is Oman FM.
So we're back on 90.FM, and we always put the song "I'm on Top of the World," and hopefully one day we can all do the clap properly. Do you guys know how to do it?
Kind of, but we can try.
Let's try.
Let's try.
How
Let's
many?
try.
How many episodes now? Come on.
Mine just
Tam.
sounds like
Is it
random
11
clapping.
Is it 11 episodes?
I think
can't.
it's around 11, yeah.
I'm
Wow.
terrible at math.
Already?
Let's try it. Let's try it.
Okay.
And you out there, try it too. It actually is a calmer.
Not if you're driving, though.
Not if you're driving.
Yeah.
Not if you're driving. Not if your boss is behind your back.
You can hum it.
Okay, let's try.
Okay.
I'm gonna say it sounds exactly like it.
Just like
Tam,
that.
you didn't even try. Anyway, what is going on around the world that will impact our mental health and how we feel? A lot of the times we open our phone, and actually today when we look at things, most of them were negative, right?
Yeah, I had to Google happy news around the world.
So sad.
And that was also very depressing news.
That was also depressing news.
I wasn't very happy.
It wasn't, and that's what sadly everything that's connected with news is bad news.
Unfortunately, that is, isn't it?
Yes.
But the thing is, it's interesting because if we had news that was like, oh, this person had a baby, or, you know,
think it's
like,
important.
yeah, people are like, oh, okay, and where's the bad news, you know?
Oh God, we're like waiting, and is the baby fine? Is the mother doing well? We're always waiting for that.
We're always waiting for that shoe to drop.
Yes, which is really sad.
Yeah.
But it seems the more life goes on, the more things become way more complicated. Call us and tell us what you think about this too. And Tam is going to tell you the number.
24949493.
And again.
You can call us on 24949493, or you can DM us on Instagram. We have a page called @NotAloneOman, and you send us a DM if you're too anxious to call us. So that's an easier way.
It is.
Yeah.
And we're just here to listen to what you want to say. What's in the news today, Tam, from your side?
Okay, so when I googled happy news, aside from Jason Derulo tipping someone $5,000, that didn't make sense. There was this news about an 8-year-old kid at Waffle House who tipped his waiter, or he raised money for the waiter because he realized that the waiter was living in a motel. And I think that's so sweet,
so
because
sweet.
when we speak about mental health, a lot of times we focus on mental health and self-care for ourselves.
Yes.
And I don't think we focus enough on, we talk about boundaries, but also being considerate of other people's mental health around us. So for this kid to go out of his way to raise money for somebody else goes to show that A, he was raised really well, and B, to be that empathetic, to put in that effort to raise
really
money for
nice.
someone else. I think that's really
That's
sweet.
wonderful. I love that.
That's really
Yeah.
nice. And I think these are the stories that we need to tell our kids.
Yes.
And tell them that, others are doing it. Of course, you have the
Exactly.
option. But
Yeah.
I think these kind of conversations are good as a family to talk about as well. Instead of, oh, did you hear what happened today? This is it's all bad news. This actually makes people enthusiastic to do more stuff.
And it's inspiration as well.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
What did you hear or listen about on your way in? Or
To be honest, I haven't. But there's lots of good news out there.
let me tell you something
Yes.
that happened then.
Yes.
Okay. So apparently in the US, there was a suspect that was, he was supposed to be acquitted. And when they were doing the selection of the jury, he ran out.
Ooh. He ran away?
He ran away.
How did he
I
manage
don't know
that?
if he was a killer or what he was, but I'm
gosh.
just freaking out reading it. I'm thinking, and I always think about this. Some things I think about, and this is actually a good idea to talk about. When people call 911 in the movies, so there's a burglar in the house, a killer or whatever, and they call 911. Don't you feel like there's a lot of questions in that 911 call? And by time they finish, the person is dead or they've stolen or something like that.
Yes.
Like they ask, where are you now? And how are you feeling? And where I can't put my voice up. People are gonna hear, that kind of thing. That's a huge panic and fear. And I
Yeah.
always watch and I think, in reality, does it actually take that long? Or when you say I need the ambulance,
Yeah.
and they're like, where's your location? Where
Right.
do you? And you're like,
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, if I think of the times when I'm panicking,
Yeah.
I can't get my brain to compute with my mouth. And
all.
I'm just like that. Just come. Just help.
But
I
the
need
people
help.
on the phone, I wonder
Yeah.
if it's a mechanism of making people calmer.
It could very well be.
But it's time. I'm just thinking about the time.
Yeah, the time frame for them to actually reach.
Yes.
Because that's a crucial time.
Exactly.
It could be where the burglar kills. It could be where the person passes out.
Exactly.
So it
And I
is
think
crucial.
that could be a lot of. You could die, as you say, you could die in your shoes. I think you
Yeah.
die 100 times waiting for. I think patience and some things are needed.
Yes.
But in some other things, I think they need to be faster. I don't know. What do you think, Tam?
I think there could potentially be a lot of prank calls as well. So I understand why the questions are being asked, but I feel like they could be asked faster, probably.
yeah.
And I feel like there needs to be an easier way. You don't really need a
A
mediator
technique or
sometimes, right?
something, or an
Yeah.
app that knows where they are, the location. But
Sounds
sometimes
like
I actually think, yeah, or sometimes I really
food
think
delivery.
it's a calmer. They try and do, which I think doesn't work at all. Talking about calm and things that we go through, we endlessly talk about mental health.
Yes.
And for years it's been talked about, even though people think that people started talking about it only now after COVID, and that is not true. There's something that I saw within these days, and I thought that's interesting. I've noticed that people with creativity, like huge creativity, like Leonardo da Vinci, and all these amazing artists and the writers and the I always feel like it came from pain,
Yes.
and that's how they became amazing. So do you guys think that too? Because like when we see Leonardo, he was a person that was going through depression. He was going through things in his life, and his best art pieces, we could say sadly, but also it's helped a lot other people, is all in times of the pain and depression and all of that.
Yes.
So do you guys think the same, that people who are like actors, singers, poetry writers, creative ground, do you think they give the best because they've actually gone through something?
I think so. I think so. And I can also talk from experience as well. Like when I've gone through hardships and pain and sorrow and all that, and I've come out on the other side, I'm so much stronger. I'm so much more resilient. I'm so much more happier. So from what you've said, I would definitely agree, where the creativity definitely comes out, where when you go through pain, you tend to want to express it in other ways where potentially you can't talk about it, especially back in the day. Now, since COVID, it's much more prevalent to talk about our mental health. It's not as taboo as it used to be. But back in the day, you know, with Leonardo da Vinci, I'm sure no one knew about depression. And no one sort of like, it was very stigmatized and very pushed underneath the carpet and the table, and like something's wrong with you. But nowadays I feel like mental health issues there's nothing really wrong with us. It's part of life. It's part of who we are. You know, we have body issues. We have pain in our body. Why don't we have pain in our brain? It's similar to that in some respect.
And it's weird, even though up till today people will still be questioning it, even though we are now very advanced and we know a lot about it. You'll still go to a conference where nobody's talking about mental health, which is very odd, I think, in this day and age, right? What about children, Tam? Do you think things that they go through in their childhood, of course, does it affect them later on?
100%. That's why I always talk about early intervention as well, because the sooner you get help, the better you are able to, I'm not going to say control, but manage those emotions, right? And something I always repeat to all clients is that your emotions are not the problem, it's how you react. Like thinking about us back in school, nobody taught us in school as well, or our parents as well. Nobody had conversations with us about mental health. What do you do when you feel angry? And so then we would react in really bad ways, and then as adults we use that childhood trauma and it causes a lot more difficulty, right? So what do you all think?
And sometimes maybe your parents won't talk to you about it, but they would do things that will make you feel better, and it will help you. For example, if you're sad, or for example, I'll bring my mom. Oh, do you want me to make you something nice? Okay, let's go out. Do you want to go to the park? You know, so it was really mental health, but it wasn't clearly this is because of that, but they were uplifting, for example, trying to, not all parents, but trying to make you feel better, try to listen to you. So they're doing all the techniques, but it didn't have that label of this is mental health.
Yeah, and I think that's why now a lot of people talk about acknowledging where it's coming from, right? You don't have to pinpoint everything and figure out, okay, this is exactly why. As long as you are able to name that emotion and you're like, okay, I feel angry or sad right now, and that is why I'm going to redirect myself and do this after that. That's what's important, right?
And I think that's very strong with the children, where if you can use art therapy with them and emotions with colors. Like there's this really interesting activity where you draw a little man or a little girl or whatever, and then you bring certain colors and you name each color with an emotion. and you ask the child, okay, what did you feel when mommy didn't want to take you somewhere, or when you didn't do well in exam, and they'll be like, well, I felt purple, for example. Let's say purple was anger. Okay, where did you feel it in your body?
Interesting.
And then they color it, and it's such a good activity.
That's amazing.
Because then through that is a narrative, is a storytelling. Through that they think they're coloring, but then lots of information come out, and then you see the colors where actually when he was really upset, he colors the heart section. Why were you that upset? What does it make you feel? It's way more effective than actually asking a person or a child, what did you feel? How did it go? So that technique is very, very useful. And again, we always tell parents, teach your kids to explain their emotions at a young age, because really when you see little ones, they cry, but sometimes they don't even know now why they're crying. They're just crying. Okay, why are you crying? I'm just crying. But why are you crying? And then when they express, because I'm upset,
What
or
are you upset
because
about?
I am hurt, or because that this makes it easier for a parent to know what to do.
And I think that's also changing in this day and age. I'm not sure what you guys think, but like back in the day, even with my parents' generation, they didn't really spend the time talking to us as children. They kind of thought, okay, children are children, let them just play, let them just do things. But they don't really have emotions. They don't really understand their emotions. But I think in our day and age, the way that I'm raising my kids, I'm very, very present. I ask them how they're feeling. I put like, okay, you're going through this. Exactly as you were saying, where do you feel it? Express to me how you're feeling. And then so my daughter would say, I'm feeling angry, Mama. Okay, what are you feeling angry about? And then she'll express that, and then she'll feel so much better afterwards. So I think it's wonderful in our day and age now, where we are allowing our children to express, because we ourselves are realizing how important it is to express. Whereas back in the day, it was kind of like, suppress your emotions. Don't feel angry.
Because
Don't
children
feel
shouldn't
upset.
be upset.
Exactly.
Shouldn't be sad. Children should be always happy and jolly and everything.
But it's at the end of the day, children are humans. We're not always happy. We're not always upset. We go through these different emotions. So having that, understanding that, being aware of that is amazing.
True. I remember telling my granny when I first worked that, I saw a client and this child was depressed. She's like, depressed? What does he have? He doesn't have responsibilities. He doesn't. I'm like, no, but this is how they think, right? Like, why would they don't have responsibilities? They're children. They shouldn't, but sadly, they do. And also, each child is totally different from the other. But let's take a break and come back.
This is Oh My.
They tried to make me go.
FM.
So we're back on 90.4, the Unsaid Show. And as we said, you can call us on Go For It, Tam.
24949493.
24949493.
Yes, you got
Yay,
it.
got it for 2 minutes.
Or you can DM
DM
us
yes, and
at Not Alone Oman.
Exactly, and tell us what you think about mental health, stigma, and why don't people talk about it. Amy Winehouse. You know, we talk about music and movies and arts on our show. One of the people that really break my heart when I read her story is Amy Winehouse. She was a very talented
So
woman.
talented, so creative.
So creative. She just went in a really, I think, bad relationship. But is it only got to do with that relationship, or is it got to do also maybe part of her?
I definitely
You know, her
think it's part of
personality.
her.
What do you guys think?
And potentially her childhood as well. I think she had a pretty tumultuous childhood.
Yes.
And they do say that it can lead very much to mental disorders, mental illnesses, mental health conditions when we have experienced a traumatic
Exactly,
childhood.
yeah. And media.
And media as well, for sure.
Media is a
Being in the
role.
media as a celebrity, it is... it can be heavy because you're always trying to put on a show. You're always trying to be someone potentially you're not. So it can be detrimental to one's health.
Actually, yeah, it can really break you.
Yeah.
And it can actually make life so tough that you actually in the end think, well, you know what? I don't care, and I don't want to be in it. I don't want to be in this world.
Yeah.
It could go up to that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think just humans in general, we mask a lot, right? So the psychological term that defines masking is when you hide certain emotions and you present as what society would expect you to be, right? And you fit into that box.
Yes.
So I think everyone does that on a general basis, but I think of how celebrities have to triple that amount of masking because they have to be someone on social media, be someone, you know, with their family, with their friends, and where do they get to actually take that mask off and be themselves? And it's so difficult. So I think it's heartbreaking for when you speak of Amy Winehouse. Yes, she could have, I mean, she possibly did get the help she needed, but I feel like social media really ruined that as well.
Very true.
And dramatized the whole thing to a point where we actually lost her.
That's true. That's true. And it's very sad. We've lost so many people.
So many people.
Through media and
yeah.
and the way people perceive mental health. One of the people that I always think about, I wonder if she would have been better if there wasn't journalism and newspapers, is Princess Diana. Like Princess Diana went through quite a bit of stuff to do with mental health. With the, I think also there was a time where she had an eating disorder,
bulimia.
there was a time where she was calling out for help literally and she couldn't get the help, although you'd think, oh, but why couldn't she, you know, that kind of question. Lots of things, and sometimes we forget that people are human, you know. We think they're a machine.
And especially those who are in the limelight.
Yes.
We, you know, like as Lady Di or
Yes.
the celebrities, we kind of
Yes.
put them on a pedestal, sort of, you know, we just do. And so we kind of look up to them,
Yeah.
and we kind of expect them to have this cushy life, this amazing life. But as you said earlier, it seems that a lot of people who are in the limelight, who have fame, experience the dark side of that.
Exactly.
And that is where they have to put on this air of, oh, I'm amazing, I'm confident. But actually, the more, as we know, the more we try to be confident, but the less that we are inside, the more it eats us up inside.
Exactly.
So potentially that is why with these celebrities, they're on all these different pills, uppers and downers. They have, you know, to your point, Tam, as well, the fact that when they have to learn to be an actor or put on a different part, they really engulf that personality. So you can imagine going from one role to another, really encompassing that for a couple of months, if not even years, and then having to go home, switch that off, put on the family face, you know, and be fine with it and be completely normal. It must be very discombobulating and dysregulating for the system.
Yeah, and also I think even okay, that's with celebrities. With people who are not celebrities, you know, the breadwinner of the house, for example, he has to always be the strong one. He has to always be the one that doesn't break, you know. And even though he has so many problems at work, but he can't talk about it because he doesn't want to look like he's weak, you know. At the same time, with if it's the mother, so even this could actually really have a toll. and nobody will know about it. And then one day somebody will just break down and say, well, I haven't told you guys, but actually I'm going through so much. And then we come to the gender part where male might not talk about it, but female will talk about it and how they were brought up and all of that. Tam, what about that kind of motion with male and female? It starts from a young age as well.
Definitely. I've heard so many parents actually tell their male kids not to show emotions, not to cry. Or I've come a lot of cases of bullying as well, where I've heard the dad, it's always the dad who tells their son, man up and be a certain way, and or hit this kid back. And I always say, how is that going to help your child at all? It's just going to pass on trauma from one child to another onto adulthood, right? And so I think parents, and you both are moms, so I want to ask your opinion on this.
Okay, we have a call. Can I just stop you there?
Yeah.
We'll continue. Keep that thought.
Yes.
Yeah, Tam? Hello?
Hi.
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 Hi. Okay, I love the point that you were saying just now about how social media has affected people in terms of mental health. But what is your opinion about nowadays? Social media is showing more of a positive side of mental illness. But at the same time, some people are self-diagnosing as well in terms of little things. What is your point on that?
As everything, there's a positive and a negative. We're not saying that social media is negative. We're just pointing out that it could be a tool. Before it was the TV that would show everything, but now it's faster. But as it has a positive, and yes, it has connected us to to everyone. Our show is on social media as well. We put it, so obviously it's a big shout out to everybody who does things for mental health and talks about it. But we're always saying that things have to be balanced. So if something is hurting you, stop doing it, stop watching it, go to something else. When we talked about the celebrities, again, we were like, because they're on that, but then they decide when they want to cut it off, or they go through this hoop. It again depends on how they were brought up, what's happened in the past, trauma. So yes, it does have a lot of positive, as you're saying, and it also has a negative, as everything else in life. You're right.
As long as we see it, I feel from a more even keel mind, and go, okay, this is a great platform to showcase so many things, and to get so much education and learning from it, but to also realize that not everything you read or see is real. And to take it with a pinch of salt in some way, and just go, okay, that's your opinion, let me form my own opinion from the different gatherings I can research on. And I think that's quite a crucial point, that a lot of us should realize that we shouldn't only just believe one source. Have different sources, especially nowadays. We are in the information age where we're bombarded with information around us. So understanding that and taking the right information that you feel is connected to you, I think is key, to not sort of get drowned out by it.
I want to answer that last question about self-diagnosing, because I do understand, and we understand as therapists, that not everybody can afford therapy. A lot of times people in the world struggle to go to therapy, even, regardless of the financial aspect. And so if you're watching videos online about mental health, great, learn about it. However, when it comes to an official diagnosis, you do need the help of a mental health professional. So you can't just watch every video and then be a hypochondriac and say, okay, I have this. You're gonna have a ton of labels on you then, right? So learn from it, understand how you work, and then go seek a professional medical diagnosis, and then go down that path, rather than just saying, oh, I 100% have this disorder because of a video I watched.
And thank you for bringing up that self-diagnosed thing, because that's a problem we are facing a lot. Even in the clinic, people come already diagnosed themselves. And that is not right. Google is not a doctor. And Google, for example, if I was talking about Google, it sometimes gives you the worst scenario ever. But can I ask you a question? Thank you very much for calling. What do you think about the topic of mental health? Should it be talked about more? And what setting do you think it should be talked about?
Definitely. I've always been like, I think it's something that it needs to be talked more, and make it more common, that, it's not a negative thing if you are diagnosed with something, but there's a lot of stigma around it, where people think if you have mental health or mental illness or form of diagnosis, something not quite right with you. You're crazy. You're not part of the society. So this kind of stuff, I really appreciate it. So when I saw the topic today, I was like, yes, I need to watch it during my break at work.
Yay. Thank you so much. We love this call, and we hope you have a lovely, pleasant day. Bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's finish your point, Tam, and then have a
I'm
little
gonna be
break.
honest, I can't remember.
Wow.
Actually, nor can I.
Maybe after the break then.
Yes.
Let's have a short break and come back again.
This is Oman FM.
And we're back on 90.4 on the Unsaid show that talks about things that maybe are not talked about in the mental health world and in society and culture. Call us in. DM us. We had this amazing caller before the break. We thank her again. And we talked about how media affects us positively and also negatively. Because we talk about more than one thing when we talk about mental health, we're going to talk a bit about art. Art pieces have a big effect on mental health. And as we know, art therapy is one of the, top resources to use. And we talked about Leonardo da Vinci and his art. And his most famous one was when he wasn't feeling okay, actually. And I think he drew himself. Just, I think, one of the first, paintings of an artist kind of painting himself. There's something like that, a self-portrait. Beethoven also was said to have a lot of things going on in his life, and look how successful we tend to see him, but we didn't know what was going on in his life also. I think he had an impairment, something. Was it his ear? Something like that. I
I'm
can't.
not sure.
Don't quote me, but I think it's something like that.
Van Gogh as well.
Van Gogh as well. Actually, classical music, I'm going to say my own experience with it. I really started to listen to it a lot in high school. When we had exams the last year, for some reason, it was helping me to stop stress.
Okay.
And I started listening to Tchaikovsky, Beethoven, all of them. To the extent, even in my wedding, I used a bit of Tchaikovsky.
Oh, wow.
And it was really, really good. So music is something that can let you, de-stress.
Sure.
Art,
dream.
dance, and we call it movement therapy, which really, really helps because you feel the emotion. And I think when we see ballet, or we see all these arts, cultures all around the world, they express their feelings through dance and movement. I actually read an article on The Economist, and it was saying how dancing is a revolution that has been for decades and is going to go on for decades, and it brings people together. Which you notice that, right? Doesn't matter what culture, what we just think, you find it it brings people together. So when we talk about art, Hyesha, what did you find when it came to art?
So one of the classics is The Scream, which is by, it was created in 1893, so quite a while ago now, by the Norwegian artist Edvard Munch. And he actually painted this because he had a panic attack as he was strolling down through Oslo. And all of a sudden the sun was setting and he saw blood everywhere. And that was how he created this famous painting of him having a panic attack.
Wow. I thought the story would be, he saw the sunset and then he saw how beautiful it was, and I'm like all rosy fairy, and then he calmed down.
No, complete opposite. It was dark, it was bloody. Yeah.
So that's how
Interesting. I always looked at it as like a face of shock. Like he was really excited to see something.
or just like
Now I'm gonna look at it differently.
now it's red.
Thanks for ruining it.
Oh, sorry. Well,
I'm just kidding.
yeah.
I recently read that Eminem is actually on the autism spectrum disorder.
Yes, I read that too with
yes.
Mariah Carey.
Yeah, I
Oh,
did
Mariah
not
Carey as
know
well.
that.
No, he has that. It came out because
Of the
he was
whole
obsessed
issue.
with Mariah Carey, and then they found that he has. Even though,
Yeah.
can you imagine how much he's an amazing artist? And
Yes.
I think it really depends on the person though. I know that Hyesha said that you can channel that towards creativity, but I think it really depends on the person, right? What are they doing? How are they using their creativity to actually, channel those emotions into that?
Actually, people with bipolar are very creative. And actually, a lot of also famous people who are very, very successful actually have bipolar.
And Catherine Zeta-Jones is bipolar.
Yes, and a lot of the comedian Ben Stiller, I think he has it as well.
okay.
So there's so many people that we think, wow, how are they able to shift, that fast? And there's actually something going on, but it's, again, it depends on what spectrum. So it's been like autism, it's different spectrum, so it's not all the same as well. So we can't put everyone in the same category,
Definitely.
for
We've
sure.
all got different variables that affect us.
Very much, yes. What about movies?
Okay, one of my favorite animation movies is Inside Out. Have you watched it?
Oh, it's
Yeah.
lovely.
So I looked it up because I couldn't remember all the emotions that they have in it, but it's fear, anger, joy, disgust, and sadness. And the movie plays out with 5 of these emotions in a person's head, and they show how each of these emotions interact with each other as people and their personalities coming up. And it's such a great movie.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's great for kids to
It
watch
is,
as well.
it is. And I think they're doing very well in these movies these days. Because there's also, I think, Joy. I think there's another movie beside that, one called Joy. I think he's called Joy. He's a pianist and he's lost his passion.
Okay.
Something I think is called Joy. I'm not 100% sure.
I haven't heard
But
of it.
that's also something that shows children where you can bring back your passion. Also, there was the cartoon of the Encanto. I think that's what it was. It's very colorful, and it was all about the power of family and love.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it so much watching it with
Me
my
too,
daughter,
yes.
and with the song Bruno, and we're all like into it. So it was so nice. The concept of it doesn't only have to be you're a princess, you need to marry a prince to become successful. You know, things have really turned around now in that concept. I mean, even when we see Frozen, it's about sister love, which is so nice, you know. So now I think there's another vision that people are looking through, which is kind of not deleting that, because at the time it was nice. I'm not with the idea of it's so dark. Everything is so dark now. Like every time I sat with someone recently and they were like, do you know that Snow White was only this age when she got married in the movie? I'm like, how do you even know that? What is going on?
And
like,
what does it really matter as
no,
well
but
how
why?
old she is?
What is happening?
Yeah.
You know, everything is so
Because we tend to focus on the negative.
exactly. And like Pinocchio, yes, if you look deeper, it does look dark. But for me, when I watched it, it was about don't lie,
Yes.
don't run away from home. You have to work really hard. It was very like nice and fun. Now it's like, oh my God, they've made us see everything dark that's happening. But with movies, there's so many movies that actually cater for mental health and make it really good. And I think people are really focusing on that now, if it's in the Arab world or in Europe. So that's a good twist. That's a good turn.
Do either of your kids watch any anime? Because a lot of my client kids recommend anime shows to me, and I actually go back and I watch it on Netflix.
That's
and
a bit funky.
they really talk a lot about mental health, though.
Yeah, but some of them are really like,
Some are quite
what's
dark.
going on?
Yeah, they're a bit
Some are
dark,
quite
bit crazy,
dark,
a bit out there.
Yeah. And grown-ups like them as well.
I actually like
so
them
it's
as well.
not all.
Yeah.
I think the way the storytelling is quite interesting, and things in Japan are always quite quite interesting. Let's go for a short break and come back and talk more about this lovely topic.
Yes.
This is Oman FM. This is Oman FM.
So today's episode is why aren't we talking about mental health? What's happening? And it's a very, very light one. We're not going very deep into it, but things around us are happening and we still think, no, it's nothing to do with that. It's nothing to do with mental health. It's just things. And even though people have been talking about it, sometimes the wrong people have been talking about it as well. We have that other issue now. So actually the issue now is not actually people not talking about it. We have not the right people talking about it. And just pick up the phone and start saying things, and that's not right, because it could actually really affect some people really badly. And I notice a lot of people don't notice the effect that they're giving people. And we said this so many times. We had a whole show about social media and mental health. When you talk on these platforms, it's a platform, so be knowledgeable that there's other people with you on this platform. It's like a train station. You're on a platform, other people are standing with you. If you start screaming or talking about something, everybody else is going to listen. So say your things clearly and right, and don't just say things and think, it's gone, because it does affect people very, very deeply. This song of I'm not crazy, I'm just a little upset, unwell, sorry, it's got a really deep meaning. And I always wonder, what was he going through, this artist, when he was writing the words? Because we always say writing is a form of therapy and letting out emotions and releasing it. So when a person starts writing of how they feel, and then later on it becomes a song, and we just go, well, why do we resonate with it? I think it's because we feel we're going through the same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think all of us go through, bouts of upsetness. We can call it mild bouts of depression or mild bouts of just anxiety. As we said earlier, we're humans, we're dynamic. We're not going to be just a flatliner. We have different emotions. It's an ebb and flow of life. And when we are more aware of that and more mindful and also less judgmental on it, we can be so much more open to just going, yeah, okay, you're going through that. I went through that too. Let's talk about it. Rather than stigmatizing, going, oh, look what you're going through, ha, 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 or I can help you and give you a wrong diagnosis, as you mentioned earlier. So I feel like the more we talk about it on platforms where it's less, it becomes less taboo, it becomes less, people judge it less, and it becomes so much more open, and the subject is lighter and as a whole.
That is true. And the way we talk about it, because sometimes somebody will come up to you and you think you're doing something good, okay? They'll come up to you, they'll be like, oh, I'm going through this, that, and the other. And you'll be like, oh, don't worry about it. Do you know other people are going through even more? And we
this
tend
too
to
shall
do that.
Pass.
We too. Yeah. We're all guilty. We do it at some time in our life. We're trying to do that to make people feel it's okay, others. But sometimes what happens is that person suddenly says, oh, then I shouldn't talk about it, and goes into a little hole. And others will be like, but they have this struggle, but I want to say something, but it seems it's okay, so I won't say anything about it. And then they'll go and maybe they won't talk about it again, or they'll go and find someone else. But actually that person was trying to make him or her feel better. So we have to really be careful on what we're saying.
Yeah. I think a really common question I've gotten in sessions is, how do I help someone else who's going through something? Because that word that comes up, crazy, I've heard a lot of people say that, and I think it's so dismissive of someone's mental health. If you think that a friend or a family member is struggling with their mental health, what do you think? What do you think is the best way to get them to get help, rather than taking the responsibility upon yourself to help them? What do you think, Hyesha?
I think the whole thing of when we, as you mentioned earlier, if someone tries to talk about it and then they say, oh no, it's okay, everyone goes through that, or this too shall pass, or you kind of dismiss it. But when we just hold space and just go, okay, what are you going through? Let's talk about it, and just hold it in a container. I know it's difficult though, because we always want to give advice. We're always there to try and help, especially well-meaning parents. We're like, oh, I know you, I know what you're going through, you need this. Whereas sometimes, you might not know what I need, and it's just all I want you to do is just to hear me, just to feel understood. And I feel that sometimes that happens where, especially with the mental health world, where we don't feel understood. We feel that people are judging us, or people are not going through the same thing. But if we're just holding a space to go, okay, this is what you're going through, let me hear you, and just for you to get it off your chest, I think already that's the first step.
Yeah, I think listening, just
Exactly.
listening.
Listening. And I think also if you feel you can't give the right advice, don't give it.
Yes.
Just tell them, I'm not the best for this, but I do recommend you see, if you know someone, you can go and tell them, talk to, this person, or go and find someone that you feel that might give you better. It's not like I don't want to listen. I would love to help. You have to give this reassurance, because otherwise they'll feel like you don't want to talk about it, and they'll come back and say, you didn't want to listen to me. It's not that, but I don't think I'm in the right place right now to give an advice, and also I don't know if I'm going to give the right one. This is very important and it's very powerful, and it's not you ignoring the person. As long as you reassure them, I am here for you.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I can give the right advice.
And I think it also comes twofold as well, because oftentimes if we are going through something, we tend to want to go to people who we trust the most or we feel the most comfortable around. But that person might not necessarily be able to hold space or give the right advice. Yeah. So it's also being aware of that, where you're not, necessarily saying no to that person helping you, but you're realizing that this person may not have the capacity to do that, and to go to people who can hold.
Yeah, and that's a strength, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't always have to have the answer. Yes. We tend to think, I have to have the answer, otherwise I'll look like a loser, or I don't know what I'm doing. And that's so difficult to do, because sometimes you just feel like you really want to help, but you just can't, or you're not in the right place right now to give that advice. And I think being in this profession, we go through that a lot. Okay, sometimes maybe we're not okay.
Yeah.
But we think, no, we have to be okay for others. Yeah. If you're not doing well, you won't be able to help others. And that we keep on saying it again and again and again. Yeah. So look after yourself, seek help, read the right resources. Okay, don't just judge people from what you read as well. If people say the words like, oh, it's the evil eye, or it's just something not important, don't listen. It is important. These are points, very light points. Read. But don't diagnose yourself, as Tam said. You cannot, sadly, you cannot diagnose yourself. We are in this field, and sometimes we have to go to get diagnosed. So that's how much important it is to get the right diagnosis. And I think with these shows and with these light talks, slowly maybe we're able to push awareness, which is the most important point out of everything that we've talked about today. Yeah. Awareness, education, and seeking help.
Yeah. I know we're close to running out of time, but I'm going to repeat the number.
Yes.
We're 24949493. So call us every week so that we can bring up more questions. As mental health professionals, I think a question that we get quite often is, or a statement that people say is, we don't want to open up to anyone because we're a burden. And that word is so heavy that so many people think they're burdens to other people. See, now this could be because someone else has made them feel bad for opening up, or they're already assuming that someone cannot help.
Yes.
Right? So for those of you who feel like a burden, maybe the best thing would be to just ask, like, hey, do you have the mental capacity to listen to me right now? And if someone says no, don't take offense to that, because they have their own thing going on as well. And then they can help redirect you to somebody else, like a mental health professional.
Yes. And that's the job.
Love it.
That's the job that they do. So you're not a burden to your therapist or your psychologist or your life coach or anyone who is in this profession. At this point, I want to say thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Yes, we have one more show before Ramadan, so please stay tuned. And before we say goodbye, we would love to say our famous sentence. I hope you guys have memorized it by now. And it's change begins with you. Have a blessed afternoon and take care of yourself. Goodbye.
Bye.
This is